vamos tentar perceber o que é preciso para vencer no mercado da moda na Suécia. Teremos ainda tempo para abrir uma janela e ver o que o futuro nos reserva em termos de evolução do mercado e de tendências futuras. Para nos ajudar a analisar todas estas incidências, temos o delegado da AICEP em Estocolmo e 4 especialistas suecas, e por isso passarei a conduzir este webinar em língua inglesa. Antes, uma nota breve para lembrar que deve manter a sua câmara e o seu microfone desligados durante esta sessão. Não hesitem em colocar questões através do chat. Aliás, as suas questões são extremamente importantes para o sucesso deste webinar. Let me now move to English and for a welcome address to our guests. With us this morning, Elena Waker, CEO at Trade Partners Sweden and Stockholm Fashion District, Vanessa Leporati, Chairman at the Board of Trade Partners Sweden and Stockholm Fashion District, Gunilla Group from Swedish Fashion Council, and Anna-Karin, Legal Advisor. Ladies, good morning. It is a true pleasure to have you with us today. I will be with you shortly. Before, I would like to welcome my colleague Carlos Moura, the head of Portuguese Trade and Investment Agency in Stockholm, for some introductory notes on the Swedish fashion market and the trade relation in Portugal. Carlos, bom dia. Please be welcome. The floor is now yours. Carlos, you're muted.
Bom dia a todos. Obrigado pela participação neste webinar, pelo esforço destas empresas fazerem negócios com o mundo. Good morning, everybody, especially to our distinguished speakers. I'm not going to stress many data. I just want to highlight some facts concerning the Swedish-Portugal relation and the fashion industry. A bit of Portugal. Portugal and Sweden has a great relation for a long time regarding business and exports. In 2019, the amount of exports from Portugal to Sweden were around 600 million euros, representing around 2,300 companies that are doing business from Portugal to Sweden. From those 600 million, we are talking about 20% exports in fashion, in garments and textile and footwear. So it's quite important, the sector of the fashion from Portugal into Sweden. The Swedish brands and the industry recognize the quality and the value for money of the Portuguese production. And a bit of Sweden. Everybody knows that Sweden during COVID-19 had a different approach to this pandemic. The economic figures are not so bad comparing to the other countries. We talk about the GDP, the inflation rate, the unemployment rates. We'll have to say that Sweden is seeing a broad recovery. And in this context, we hope that Portugal keeps and maintains the position in the Swedish market when we are doing business here. We know that the world has changed with this pandemic. Everybody knows it. There are some new trends that are going from deglobalization, nearshoring production, local consumption, reinforcement of this sustainability and the planet protection, with the word green in every corner. The green is our tool nowadays. The circular economy, the innovation, and the digital economy will bring us to what I call the new normal, and everybody knows what's the new normal. But when is that the new normal? I don't know, and I don't think is someone knowing the answer. I'd like to say, like the CEO of Scania in Sweden, that he said COVID-19 was a wake-up call. So to discuss this wake-up call, we invite these specialists. I'd like to end up, and before giving the floor to Carlos again, I'd like to say that the AICEP in Sweden has a small team here in Stockholm. We are small but quite dynamic to support the Portuguese companies doing the business here. Half of the companies, they know our work, what we can deliver, and our liaisons to the market. So feel free to use and abuse from us. We are here to help you. So I'll give the floor to Carlos before to go for this webinar, and I'll be here for the questions and answers. Thank you so much again.
Thank you, Carlos, for your notes. Let's now welcome to the floor Elena Waker, CEO at Trade Partner Sweden and Stockholm Fashion District. Elena, good day. After the introductory notes by my colleague Carlos Moura, wondering if you could help us understand the Swedish market and fashion consumer by profiling both. But before, reminding you that you should unmute your microphone before. Maybe you could introduce us to Trade Partner Sweden and Stockholm Fashion District and explain us how could your organization be helpful for Portuguese companies.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, we'll see what's happening.
There's a lot of mics around that seem to be open, so now we are fine. Go ahead, please.
Sorry about that. It's all the techniques. Thank you, Carlos and Carlos. And we will do as best as we can. I'm so glad that we can meet during these special circumstances. As you know, Portugal is close to our hearts. It's a wonderful country with fantastic people. And I really hope that we will do more business together in the future, which I call post-corona. And that's what we're going to also talk about today. Me and my team will talk in different parts about Sweden and how to do business together and what have happened. And please ask us questions and reach out because we're here to help everybody to get a better business. And we're all in this corona time together in the whole world. We have an agenda, Carlos. I don't know if it's if people can see it, but I will start, as you said, and then my colleagues will follow up. And I can say some parts about Trade Partners. Trade Partners Sweden is a trade organization. It's financed and private owned by our members. And our members are the sales organizations and trade partners for different products from all over the world, actually. Our members represent international brands, but also Swedish brands. And their business is mostly in form of agents and distributors. And they are, in my point of view, experts of sales. So they sell their products in Sweden and in the Nordics. And in our, In our organization, we share business intelligence, we're networking, we have law expertise, and we're also running trade fairs and trade houses. We have companies which we represent in textile, fashion, shoes, bags, interior design, furniture, and beauty. Together with our members, we created a couple of years ago something called Stockholm Fashion District. It is a trade district, and we have two large trade houses with showrooms, one for fashion and one for shoes, and they are prepared with full collections. So it's houses where we invite buyers. And we also have two exhibition halls for guest brands. And together with our members and also guest brands, we are creating fashion weeks for trade and also trade fairs for shoes, textile, and interior design. And all this together makes a lifestyle concepts for the shops and for the e-platforms. We are closely connected with companies and organizations in the fashion and the shoe industry in Sweden and in the Nordics. And together there is 150 showrooms. So it's quite a big place for trade. Our visitors in the districts are buyers from shops, department stores, e-commerce platforms, and also designer and design teams for the Swedish companies or the Swedish fashion companies and shoe companies, of course. I will speak a little bit about the Nordic region. I hope you can see our map. First, it's the Nordic. If you look at the Nordic map, we have a combined population of 27 million people. We are 4 different countries. We are similar, but also different to do business with. And I guess most of you which are listening are doing business, hopefully, with the whole Nordics. We can help you to sometimes sort out how the Danish are and the Norwegians are and the Finnish people are, because we are a little bit different. All countries have economic growth, and we have all of our 4 countries have stable business environment. And as you can see on the figures, you can see at the retail turnover index. And there you can see it's a small difference between our 4 countries and also with the population. And Sweden has the biggest population and the largest market in the Nordic region. And if you look at Sweden, which is to the right there, you can see we are a little bit similar in our form as Portugal. We are 10.2 million people, and I think that's quite similar to Portugal. We are 1,752 kilometers from the north to the south. And we are actually a little bit different also, the people who lives in the north in Sweden to the people in the south of Sweden. We're a little bit more introvert in the north, I think. I don't know if we don't have anyone with us here today, but if they agree, but a little bit darker up there. And in the south, I think it's a little bit more like Portugal, perhaps. A little bit more sunny and open-minded. But we're all very friendly. And it's also different amounts how we sell goods and garments. Because in the north we have more colder, more winter, and it's already snowing up there. And here in Stockholm, where we are working from, it's sunny and 18 degrees today. We also have our major city, Stockholm, Gothenburg, and Malmö. And you can see on the red dots on this map that it's more populated there. So the south of Sweden is more business. But if you're a sales organization or if you sell garments to Sweden, you sell all over the country, and it's a lot of traveling up and down. And actually, 63% of Sweden is covered with forest. So the whole Swedish people, you can see us as an outdoor nation and a green nation. And at a glance for Sweden, and I would say, actually, and be very humble, because this is before Corona. We are a top-performing economy, number 9 in the world, most competitive economies, and we have things which are really good here, which is free healthcare. We have a very generous parental leave, one of the most generous, I think, 480 days paid parental leave that also can be shared between our parents. We have free education up to university, and 70% of the population speaks English. And we have had a strong retail growth for 22 years, so we're a little bit spoiled up here. And we also have a long life. I think it's 84 years life expectations of women. And so we are kind of healthy people. And the good thing is also, which has been, as we have had a high spending power, and and that you can see in the retail growth, actually. And the retail growth and the retail market before Corona and the shopping scene was that we have had a great turnover, and both in e-commerce and physical trade. And Sweden has more shopping mall areas than any other Nordic countries. We have actually 30% more square meters than the other Nordic countries. And we have a little bit less independent stores, and definitely less independent stores than Portugal. So the scene is dominated by domestic brands and large chains, and especially woolen clothing, like H&M. And H&M is the second largest apparel retailer in the world. And they are from Sweden, and I think that has also been a goal for many new companies in Sweden to be like H&M. So we have a lot of department stores and chains which are looking for kind of volume clothing. And if you look at the e-commerce scene, Sweden are very into e-commerce. Before Corona, 70% of the Swedish consumer purchased online once a month before Corona. So I think it has happened a lot during Corona now, where so much more. And 90% of the Swedish population has access to internet. And I think it was like around 80% in Portugal, so we're kind of close. And before Corona, it was about 15% of all sales, which was on the internet. And we have also very good Swedish platforms, which our brand sells a lot to, like Footway, Color Roots, Boost, Nelly. And they all come and visit Stockholm Fashion District and buy their products. They also, of course, now buy from digital showrooms. And many international brands has actually successfully entered to the Swedish market because you can see that our consumer and the Swedish people are very interested of international brands, and we're very curious and want to feel that we're very international. So I say that we're a good market to enter, but a little hard because we don't have so many independent stores like other markets. So you need to get into this very the big stores and the department stores. But what happened? The Corona. We were all hit, and we didn't in Sweden. It was a very special time because we didn't close down. We did take another strategy. Corona has hit us very hard, especially in Stockholm, and unfortunately, many elderly people have actually died. But I know it's similar in many countries, and it's so sad. But for the business, the shops in Sweden didn't close down, but most people had started to work from home and didn't be in the city at all. So it was a hard time for the shops. Many brands stopped their production, and we have now heard a lot of stories about how bad the production situation is now, and that they cannot fulfill their orders to the shops. They actually lowered the production with up to 60% and even more. So I know that probably a lot of factories has been hit by this. But it has been very calm in the shops, even if we have had an open society. And we have been advised for our government to keep distance. And that's what the same rules as we got in March. We still have the same rules for the shops and for the business. So it's been really hard also to do the B2B business, but we have been managed to do that in the Stockholm district. So we have actually went through having a fashion week of trade where we could meet, and 70% of the buyers did come to the fashion district and buy, which, I mean, we used to have like 100% of the buyers, but now we had 70%. So I think that's a quite good figure, actually. And they were very happy to come here and meet after being more or less isolated in their stores or in their cities. This is a kind of new figure, which is in Swedish, so it's a little special, but I hope we can figure it out. This is a new figures which I just got last week, and this is how the economic effect our business, which you can see. And the green post, if you take from the left, measures the decline during March to May. And unfortunately, this is the shoe business. And the shoe business has been affected and hit very hard during the Corona in Sweden. And the lilac post in the shoe, also for shoes, measures the total decline during January to July. And you can see it's a little bit better, but it was really hard the sales really did decline, and for the shoe industry. The next post is watches, but then the next post after that is fashion and clothes. And it was also very hard hit for the fashion industry, even though we had the shops opened. So the shops were open all the time, but there were no people there buying the clothes, more or less. And now I will show you the next picture, which is also in Swedish, but this is our retail growth for the last 25 years. And we have had dips in 2001 and 2008, and it has all been affected of the world, our dips in our retail growth. And but it's always a little bit up for every year totally. And next figure is just what happened and what was the develop in the retail during Corona, March to May. And you can see it was a great dip, but you can also see a small positive change. And and the thing is, we got new figures yesterday, and the decline in July was 24% for shoes and 18% for fashion. And totally, I think the shoe industry is so affected because people are still working from home and not using shoes so much. But fashion is doing a little bit better. And this is all together with e-commerce and the physical stores. This is something I really want to show you. This is the International Chamber of Commerce and Business Sweden did a big research and survey, and they did a research from the companies in the countries where Sweden are represented by an embassy. And they asked all companies what was the most important for your company to grow back after Corona, like post-Corona. And the highest ranking, and it was a lot like save costs, do a lot of things with the staff and everything, a lot of questions, but the highest ranking is access to qualified partners and distributors in every country. So I think it's really good that we have these sessions that you can grow better partners and better understanding for each other, because I think that will take us forward in this circumstances with Corona, which we're all into. One thing which was really a little bit strange in this survey was that digitalization has a low ranking when they asked the companies. But I've been thinking about it, and I think everyone takes that for granted 2020 in the world. I think you're all digital, what you can do. And then a little bit about the Swedish consumer. How are we and what are we thinking about? I mean, Sweden is a very highly individualized country. We're working with trust and transparency. And the using of social media is very high if you compare in the world. We're kind of trendsetters, forward-looking, thinking of sustainable. But one thing which you never should forget, that we have both H&M and IKEA as our two largest companies for retail. And we're thinking a lot about the costs of the products. We want low cost but high quality. And this is something about us. And also we're thinking a little bit, which my colleagues will talk more about, but we are recycling a lot. Every home is recycling a lot, everything. And we are trying to start this thing with repairing and also second-hand products, which as Gunilla will talk a little bit more about. And at last, one picture which I showed last time when I had the opportunity to be and talk directly in Portugal, which was amazing, is this an international survey about our behavior. And I think when you're all in stress situation, I think your behavior shows even more. So this is something you can have in mind before also Vanessa will talk about doing business with Swedes and look at this figure and think where you are in, what kind of part you are in from Portugal. It's the Swedish people. It's you can see if we don't express our emotions so much. We are a little bit more like the English people. You can see we're quite close to UK, and we do avoid confrontations. And I think you will find Portugal somewhere a little bit close to, I mean, you're very nice people, I think, but you express your emotions a little bit more. And we are jealous of that, because I think we would like to do that. And we are full of emotions, and we like the way you show it, but we are more quiet. So when you do business with us, think of trust and transparency. And I think this is this figure is something to think about before you start, when you talk to your Swedish clients, and when you start up a meeting with a Swedish company, because you can really do better business having this in your mind. And one more thing, the figures and the facts which I have talked about, we're working partners with Invest Stockholm, and we will, if it's possible with Carlos, we will send you a retail guide with a lot of facts and figures from Sweden, digital, if it's possible. And with that, this was all what I had in mind to say now. And I would love to have questions in the end, but I will give the time to talk to Vanessa, actually.
Thank you, Elena, for walking us through the Swedish consumer fashion profile, and also through the Swedish fashion market, outlining and the fact that this market is dominated by big retailers, which gave us some food for thought for the audience, and maybe to talk a little bit later. Let's now welcome Vanessa Leporati. Vanessa, we now have a good profile of the Swedish market and the Swedish consumer, but the million-dollar question is how to best approach the market in these difficult COVID times when sales may be a bit sluggish.
Hi, everybody. I am talking through Helena's computer, actually, because of my sound not working. So very happy to meet you all virtually. I'm the chairperson of Trade Partner Sweden and Stockholm Fashion District. And I'm going quickly to guide you through how to think when working with the Swedish companies, and I do know that many of you already do. So please take my advices humbly. I'm talking with and being humble. Before talking exactly about Swedish people or generalizing about Swedish people, I want to open with something that the great hockey player Wayne Gretzky said. Because he once said, a good hockey player plays where the puck is. A great hockey player plays where the puck is going to be. That is quite difficult at the moment, isn't it, to be a great hockey player, because we do not really know where the puck is going to be. We do not really know how the market will evolve at the moment. So in these times, in pandemic times, it's not only our customers being stressed, we are also stressed. We, the companies that want to sell something to the customers. And I was reading through a McKinsey report from this period. And actually, there are 3 takes I'm going to give to you if you have not been reading it. I thought were very, very interesting. The first one that they actually could see in the report is that we all should take a step back and take a deep, deep breath. So when we do act out of fear or out of stress, we normally take very bad decisions. So take a breath and remember that your customer is actually sitting in the same boat. They don't know either where to go, and that makes them even slower sometimes in taking decisions, or sometimes a little bit too quick to take, in our eyes, the wrong ones. So not really being able to control what's happening in the outer world at the moment, what we should do is actually to look at ourselves even more. So what can we do better? Or what are we missing at the moment? Is there something, is there an offer that we do miss, that the customers always often says, why don't you do this and that also? Could we actually add that thing or that product or that service so that we get even more interesting? And then please plan, you've already done it, I think, but plan for different scenarios so that you are ready to different scenarios in your company. And then remember once again, what can you influence and what can you not? So concentrate on what you can influence, because we cannot influence Corona's how that evolves, that we cannot. So as Helena said, trust and transparencies are very, very important for the Swedish people. I'm generalizing. I myself am half Italian, so, but I'm very Swedish in my core, I need to say, and trust and transparency are very, very important. And there is sort of a business etiquette in Sweden that many of you already know, but I will talk about it because Sweden is actually one of the world's best countries in corporate social sustainability, in CSR, meaning things such as climate change issues, gender equality issues, anti-corruption issues, and all these things are actually taken in account when a Swedish company makes business with a company from the outside. So take a good look at yourself. How are you perceived? How can we feel when we have to make business with you that you also are a company that takes responsibility for all these things because they are important? Number two, Swedish people think that punctuality is very important. So if you have booked a meeting at a certain time, please show up in time. Then things can happen. So if you don't, give a call, send an SMS, send an email, and tell that you're not going to be in time, actually. And then one other thing that is very, very important is that Swedish people really like to plan their meetings. Then another thing, in Swedish people really like to have consensus in the company. Swedish business are not built on a hierarchy. It's a very linear way of working. So sometimes when you are in meetings and you feel, wow, this is a good flow, or they like us, we have a nice meeting, you do not get a yes anyway for a long time maybe. And you don't get a no either, so you don't know. But that means really that they all want to be sure together that they want to work with you. So that can actually be a bit frustrating at times, but that is actually how it works. And sometimes the process really takes a long time, but be sure that as long as you do not get a no, it is still the possibility of a yes. So then sometimes you also need to think about the fact that if you get to be too energetic in a discussion, or too how do you say I say energetic, Swedish people can perceive you as if you were angry, because normally they are not so elderly. I don't know, Carlos, maybe you can talk about that later also, but it's very important that that you think about that. So not that you should be yourself, but sometimes if you get to be too pushy, that they perceive you to be too pushy, then they feel a little bit insecure because they like to take their own decision actually. So to wrap it up, I will say trust is very important. I will say transparency is very important. You need to be actually It's like in all the relationships, also in private, we need to do as we say. Then you will get the trust of a Swedish company. And then least, but very, very important, is the word that you can read on the screen. When you have a meeting with a Swedish company, you should really always have a time for a nice fika. Fika is actually just drinking a nice coffee together. In Swedish companies, normally they have 15 minutes before lunch and 15 minutes after lunch where everybody gathers and have a nice cup of coffee and eat something sweet. And it's really part of the Swedish culture. So take time for that also, just to chit chat and ask some question. And then the last thing I want to say that I would like you to take with you is that ask questions, because these days you should work after the win-win. The customers you work with, they should win something with working with you. So be like a family, and I know that you have that in your core as Portuguese people. So just invite them in and make business and make money together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vanessa, for giving us some clues about how to approach the Swedish market. You outlined some very important topics, such as the importance of having causes, and especially the importance of embracing in full CSR activities for a company that wants to approach the Swedish market, and of course to win trust of their partners in Sweden. We will come back to you in the Q&A session. I will now kindly remind that we are heading shortly exactly to the Q&A session. Please start preparing your questions, as they are very important to the success of this webinar. We already have one in line to address you. In the meantime, let's see what the future holds in terms of trends and future scenarios with Gunilla Group from Swedish Fashion Council. Gunilla, don't know exactly if your crystal ball is working perfectly today. Nevertheless, could you please walk us through future scenarios and trends for the Swedish fashion market? I believe you are the lady that everyone is waiting for today, because you're the one who will predict the future. Welcome. Gunilla, please unmute your mic. Your mic is muted, as I can see it. Your mic is on the bottom left hand. You should see a mic. Please press it.
I did.
You did, and now we are listening.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, perfectly. Please go ahead. It's fine. Go ahead. Gunilla, your computer is not working anymore. I suspect that the sound was coming through Elena Waker's computer as well. So Elena, if you could just approach the computer to Gunilla, and the sound will come through there.
Yeah, we do it all again, because I could hear you. I had earplugs and they were working fine, but you couldn't hear me. So let's do it this way then.
It's fine. Let's predict the future now.
Yeah. Okay. So if you look at the Swedish fashion and the fashion brands, you will find the Swedish soul, sharp lines and natural colors, no extravaganza and strong colors. We are not so expressive in Sweden. We also have a very strong denim community, where most of the fashion brands like Acne, Philippa K and Hope all carry their own denim line. And we also have a big denim brand that is called Nudie from Gothenburg. But also the Swedish society is changing, and so are Swedish fashion, with influences from across the world now, where every fourth of Swedes comes from a non-Swedish background and have contributed a great to cultural diversity. Swedish fashion has also transformed, and the new Swedes deliver fashion that plays with and subvert the traditional pared down Swedish simplicity. Nu måste du, sorry, I need some help here with Helena, and she has the...
I think you have it.
I have it, so I just like this.
Yes.
No. Okay. So you see another, sorry for that. So this is some of the Swedish brands that are the biggest one here in Sweden right now. And as Helena talked about, she talked about the H&M group, and H&M is by far the most famous global brand in Sweden. They have contributed enormously to Swedish fashion and put Swedish design on the map. But in my opinion, they both feed each other. Without the Swedish fashion scene, H&M wouldn't have gained their fame and so on. And many of the today, the big Swedish designers have started their career at H&M. So, and I won't continue. This is then Filippa K, which is really approaching the Swedish soul with this strict and minimalistic look. But then, as you can see, Acne is approaching the very more powerful and colorful approach. And as Vanessa mentioned, I'm trying to go over for the trends in Sweden now. And as Vanessa mentioned, sustainability is a very big, it's very high up in Sweden. For several years, the Swedish fashion industry has shifted its business models towards a more sustainable industry. More or less all brands in Sweden work with sustainability, and I will argue that you can't start a new brand in Sweden nowadays, or you can't be approaching Sweden as a brand or a fabric developer or production or anything without mentioning or talking about sustainability. For Swedes, sustainability is a hygiene factor, and brands and consumer demand sustainability for fabrics along with sustainable production and decent work condition. But globally, you can see that the fashion structure with collection delivered long before the season, overproduction and sales periods are discussed even globally with the hope of a common change. And you can think of it like this, that traditionally we have consumed fashion by buying. That's the only way of getting to get our clothes. But if we are going to transport ourselves from A to B, we have several options. We can take a car, we can take bus, a taxi, an Uber, walk, cycle, or even take an electric kick bike. So we need to find new ways and new business models to consume clothes. And now we can see that many new initiatives are happening here in Sweden, and we can add that you can rent your clothes, you can exchange them between in your network. You can also borrow them as an kind of an Airbnb thing, and you can reuse them as new models for company. These are all new models for companies that's a way of consuming clothes. And of course, the new situation with COVID-19 has forced and intensified all these needs. 3-year business plans have been revised and implemented in 3 months, and brands have enabled second-hand shopping. H&M just the other day said that the brand COS will take back clothes and resell them. So they will buy them. If you have an old COS clothing, or COS blouse, they will sell them for you once again. And they are reusing materials, QR codes for traceability in your clothings, refined second-hand initiatives, and clothing rentals are just a few examples that have seen the light in the footsteps of COVID-19. But also, as Vanessa said, sustainability is not just about the environmental perspective, and Swedes are very much into human rights and so on. So, and also about economic and social sustainability. And in the light of the tragic murder of George Floyd in the US, the Appeal Black Lives Matter Sweden started. And so the focus has been the density of perspective that companies possesses, and the conversation about diversity and equality is now being conducted at a company manager level as well. Okay, so what we have talked about and Helena talked about during this seminar is that Swedes is a country with great innovation power and the ability to adapt to new trends, and digitization, you all know what I mean, has been also included in the business plans for a long time, but as COVID-19 as well, it has been intensified. New business model have seen the light of the day much earlier than expected. Virtual showrooms, digital sales channels is big, sales meetings online, and meetings like this have replaced the physical meeting when the restrictions were most severe. And stores and designers are looking for other opportunities to get in contact with the consumers, and when the consumers couldn't go outside, they started what they call live shopping. It started in China, and you probably heard all about it. Even digital clothes have seen the light of the day, but that's a thing that let us hope that will not be a big trend for us. And I think that was all for me about what's happening right now. And please feel free to ask questions afterwards this session. And I will say thank you.
Thank you, Gunilla, for helping us to foresee what the future holds in terms of trends for the Swedish fashion market. We now have a lawyer in the room. This is becoming more and more interestingly. To wrap up the set of presentations that we have prepared for this webinar, I would now like to introduce you to Anna-Karin, who is a legal advisor, has always doing the right things in the right time, and legal terms are of utmost importance so business can run smoothly. Anna, could you point us some essential aspects that companies should be aware while approaching the Swedish market? And I hope that I didn't say anything so far that can be used against me. Your mic is muted. Please unmute your mic, and you will be live and clear right now. Please go ahead, Anna.
Is it okay now? Well, hi everyone. Great to be here. And Carlos, you are fine so far. You're safe. I'm here today to talk about some legal aspects on trading with Swedish companies and consumers. I am a lawyer and I work with trade partners and Stockholm Fashion District for close to 10 years. I specialize in agency and distribution law, intellectual property rights, and commercial contracts in general. I have provided you with a short agenda for today that you can see here on the screen. I will briefly mention and go through some agency and distribution law matters here in Sweden. I will answer the very important question for you if Swedish or Portuguese law will apply when you're trading with Swedish companies and consumers. And lastly, I will mention some issues regarding e-commerce and consumer protection. So let's get started. I'm waiting for my next slide. Is there any, oh, sorry, here. Well, let's start with agency law. I have chosen a flag for the European Union when presenting regarding agency law. And this is based on the fact that agency law is very harmonized within the entire European Union. Back in the late 1980s, the EU decided that now it's the time to give commercial agents within Europe a better and stronger protection and a similar protection throughout the Union. So this directive called the Commercial Agents Directive was adopted in 1986. And since 1986, all European countries have adopted legislations on their own, which are in line with this directive. Some countries have offered agents better protection than the directive, and some countries have sort of just offered the minimum protection that's stated in or granted through the directive. And the Swedish Commercial Agency Act that we adopted here in Sweden is in line with the directive, but in some aspect, it's offering a more generous protection than the directive itself. So it's good for you to know that the Commercial Agency Act here in Sweden contains several mandatory provisions. This means that these provisions are not able to derogate from when you are entering into a contract with an agent. So these provisions will always apply, even though you have written something else in your agreements. The mandatory provisions, they regulate, for example, the agent's right to commission. The agent is entitled to receive commission at least on a quarterly basis. You're obligated to provide the agent with detailed commission statements explaining what they receive commission on. The law also states that the agent is entitled to a certain notice period upon termination. In Sweden, the notice period is 1 month for each contract year that you enter into. So for example, if you have an agent that you worked with for 18 months, then you have entered the second contract year and the agent is entitled to 2 months notice. However, the maximum notice period is 6 months. So if you worked with an agent for 10 years, the agent can only receive 6 months notice. Then there's also a regulation on indemnity. This is a sort of like a goodwill compensation for all the customers that the agent has built up or brought you during the term of the agreement. So the agent gets a compensation for for all the future business that you will be able to do with the customers that the agent has found. What is interesting is when you look at distribution, if you decide to work with distributors in Sweden, is that there is no law on distribution. For commercial agents, everything is very well regulated, but for distributors, there's no law. This means that it's so much more important for you to have a good contract with your distributors. There's, of course, freedom of contract here in Sweden. You have the right to put more or less anything you want in those contracts, but make sure that you have a written contract. If you don't have a contract, I mean, it happens from time to time that people don't have distribution contracts, but I would highly recommend it because otherwise you will have less predictability with your distributor, and it will be difficult to sort of foresee or know what the outcome will be of any disputes that you enter into with your distributor. If you don't have an agreement, there is some interesting case law from the Swedish Supreme Court that will apply in the absence of a contract. The Swedish Supreme Court has, for example, stated that a distributor who's in a long-lasting relationship with a supplier is entitled to 6 months' notice on the termination of the agreement. The Supreme Court has also said in another ruling that distributors in general are not entitled to any indemnity at the termination of the agreement. So this is a quite big difference from commercial agents who can be entitled to a fairly large compensation at the termination, whilst distributors don't have the same right. Now it's time to answer this, as I said, a very important questions for you trading with companies here in Sweden is, will Swedish law or Portuguese law apply when you trade with these companies and consumers? This is also an issue that's regulated by the EU. There's a regulation which we lawyers, and in short, call for the Rome I regulation. And this regulation, as a main rule, it's stated that a contract is governed by the law that's been chosen by the parties. So if you have written an agreement where it's stated that Portuguese law shall apply or Swedish law shall apply, then that's the case. But if you don't have a contract or if you haven't regulated this specific issue, you will find the answer in this regulation, which law will apply. So as you see here, I've listed on my slide, if there's no choice of law clause in your agreement and you have a contract on sale of goods, Portuguese law will apply. If you don't have agreed on anything else, in an agency contract or a distribution contract, then Swedish law will apply. This is at times quite surprising for those who don't have agreements or have regulated this issue. If you are selling goods to consumers and you have not agreed on anything else, then Swedish law will also apply. Moving on to our next slide. As the last section of this session, I will briefly mention to you something about consumer protection and e-commerce. Right now, I can't. The slide where I've written about consumer protection is not.
The slide is blank. Maybe you could push it back.
Yeah, I'm pushing it back and forward.
Okay, now forward.
Yeah.
And now some magic. Here it is.
Yeah, I'm hoping for magic.
Oh.
However,
I just saw it for a few seconds.
Well, you know, this
here it is.
My last.
Magic is done.
I'm looking for slide number 6.
It's about e-commerce?
No, it's about consumer protection. So it's actually the slide before this slide.
Could you push back once again?
We'll see.
It's blank. For some reason, it is.
But it doesn't really matter. I can talk about the slide anyways. Well, in as I did mention just now when I was talking about which law that will apply, in the event that you have no written agreement with consumers or some sort of general terms that will apply with your consumers, as I mentioned, then Swedish law will apply. And it's difficult for me to go over the entire Consumer Protection Act that we have here in Sweden. But I think one issue that's good for you to know, and it's probably the issue that you will encounter most oftenly, it's the fact that a consumer wish to make a complaint, that they have received a defect product. According to the Consumer Protection Act, it's of course possible for the consumer to turn to its seller and say, my good is defect, I wish to receive a new product or to get my money back. In order to have such a right, the consumer have to make a complaint in time. So according to the Swedish Consumer Protection Act, a consumer have to make this kind of claim within a reasonable time from having noticed the defect. According to the law, if the agent or the consumer makes such a complaint within 2 months from having noticed the defect, the consumer is always considered to have made this kind of complaint on time. It's also good to know
that there's a 3-year maximum, right? Time to.
Yeah, there's a 3-year maximum. So you have to be prepared that a consumer may turn to you after 2 years and 11 months and say, well, now I've found a problem in my good and I wish to return it. And such a claim can be valid. And now we're moving on to e-commerce. There is a specific piece of legislation when you're selling online to consumers in Sweden. This piece of legislation is harmonized with all other European countries. So you will find similar regulations in Portugal as well. But according to this piece of legislation, which is called the Distance and Doorstep Sales Act, a consumer is entitled to cancel a purchase of a product within 14 days from receiving the product. And what's specific about this right of cancellation is that the consumer is entitled to cancel the product for whatever reason. It doesn't have to be anything wrong with the product. They just have the right to return the good. And for you as a seller, it's important that you inform the customer at the time of the purchase that they have this right of cancellation. If they don't receive the information that they have this right, the right to cancel will be extended from 14 days up to 1 year. And I think even though if you are not selling to consumers, these laws, you will not really encounter the laws yourself. You will not have to handle them. But I think it's important for you to know what your customers or your distributors are having to handle. So you might have a customer in Sweden, you're selling to a big store. They might have to handle that a consumer comes to them after 2 years and 11 months claiming that they have bought a faulty product and that they wish to return it. So your boutique in Sweden that you're selling to might be coming to you with this kind of claim fairly late and asking compensation for the products that you have delivered. This was actually all that I had planned to mention today, and I look forward to hearing some questions from all of you. Thank you so much for taking your time.
Thank you, Anna. And now we will jump into the Q&A session of this webinar, and some questions are already popping in. Paula Cibrão has a question about Platform Fashion District Stockholm. She asks, for what I heard or understood, the Fashion District Stockholm is a platform where Swedish brands can find suppliers and make commercial partnerships on textiles. How can we be a part of this list of potential suppliers, or how can trade partners help us being part of that list? What do we have to do, or what is needed for us to be on that list?
I will answer. Thank you for that question. We will send out our manager of the events and our trade events for textile and production to everyone, and you can be on the list of that event. Nowadays, this time we had a textile event or like a trade fair, but the thing was because of COVID-19 we couldn't invite anyone international, but we have the agents which are representing them, the Swedish agents and distributors here, and which can take care of their customers. So, and you can definitely be on that list. So send us information about your company to, her name is Sophia, but you will get her name in the sending out to you after this session. And also we can help you with some contacts in the Swedish markets, which you will get in the digital form of the retail guide. But also on that trade event, we have more or less the whole fashion industry visiting us.
Thank you, Elena. I would like to remind our audience that at the end of this webinar, the recording of this session and also the presentations that were delivered here, plus all the information that Elena kindly makes us available, will be sent to you. And now the next question from Agustin Carneiro. It's a question about developing business in Sweden. We are a company working in 3 areas on textiles, bed linen, sportswear, and equipment of individual protection. We would like to develop business in Sweden, so please give us some clues. This is a very general question. All you ladies have pointed out some of these clues, but anyway, if you could wrap up or sum up some of the most important clues that you just shared with us this morning.
Okay, I take that because my microphone is working. I think first of all you should go through all the companies in Sweden which have that products and make them a list, and then contact them, of course. And today, when it's not so easy to travel, it's best to be with a digital meeting or connect with them, but get to know them a little bit more on their platforms, the e-platforms, and look, ask who is, call them and ask who is in charge of the buying, and try to reach them. And I think in that section, I think you could be really lucky because, so sum up a little bit facts about what's happening in the companies. I think that part is selling very well, and during our trade fairs, the outdoor and the sports brands in Sweden are doing much better than just the fashion brands. So many fashion brands are also changing their collections to make them more sporty and more outdoor and more casual. So I think you have a good opportunity if you're in that section, but also lift up everything you do with sustainability, and that you're all these positive things which you have in your company, which we have been speaking about the Swedish, what attracts the Swedish companies actually. And I think Portugal really has many factories and producers has that in their core. So I think lift that up a little bit more in your presentations.
And I would like also to underline something that Vanessa just said during her presentation, that it's very important for Swedish companies to embrace CSR and build trust as much as they can. And now we have a legal question that comes from Paulo Nicolau. The question is about protection of suppliers. It seems that agents are very much protected when it comes to ending a relationship with the supplier. And what about the supplier? How is he protected?
Yeah. It's a good question. To be frank, the Commercial Agents Act here in Sweden does not contain so many provisions that are aiming at protecting the supplier, and it's the same throughout Europe. Since the directive that was the basis for the Swedish legislation and the legislation in many other countries, the purpose of it is to protect the agents. So the supplier has not really been on the legislators' minds when they made the directive. However, there are some clauses in the act which are beneficial to suppliers. There is one of the first clauses of the act is that it's both the agent and the principal have to act loyal, and this loyalty clause is very important and is taken very serious by both parties. There's also a possibility to terminate the agreement with immediate effect if the agent commits a material breach of contract. So, for example, if you have an agent that's not performing its work properly, there is an opportunity or possibility to terminate the agreement with immediate effect. And if the agent is terminated with immediate effect, the agent loses any possible right to goodwill indemnity as well. But I think you should keep in mind that even though it might seem like the agent is very protected and that they have many rights, from my perspective, it's really only the really well-performing agents that benefit mostly from the legislation. Because you, as a commercial agent, you will not be entitled to any indemnity, goodwill indemnity at the termination if you have not done a good job. As an agent, you face the risk of being terminated or losing the right to represent a specific brand if you're not doing a good job. So I think most agents that really, really want to work for you as a supplier, they will put in a great effort to do a good job for you.
Thank you. Elena, is there a difference in how to establish yourself in Sweden between the different industries? Your mic, please.
Sorry, can you repeat the question again?
Yes, I was asking if there's a difference on how to establish yourself in Sweden between the different industries.
It is a difference. I can see one thing which I have seen a lot of times now is that because of this trust thing in the Swedish companies, when you establish yourself in Sweden, and I can see all these fashion companies in Sweden working with agents and factories all over the world, but when the Swedish we start a contract and we trust the people we work with very much. But when we have something which we have got, which we need to complain a little bit about, because to develop the business between the companies, we are not always so clear of what we mean. And the business or the companies in Sweden, sometimes they don't, they're not so straightforward. So when they complain, if you hear them or complain or start to discuss something which they didn't like, they don't shout it out, to be clear. And but so just listen to the small things which the Swedish company says, and if you do that, you will have a great business. So that's one thing which I can when I talk to like Philippa K and Lexington and all these kind of large companies producing a lot in Portugal, the places where they put their production, if they are listening to the designers or the one who are working with the production very closely, they are the one who gets the orders, because And I think that is different if you work with Germany or with France or any other countries, because they're more direct. We're not so direct. So that's one thing which you can really think about. And otherwise, I think we have a good business climate in Sweden, so it's not so hard otherwise. And then you can also think that we are having this very large fashion company, H&M, which is hard to get into, but when you get in there and you follow their rules, it's really good for the producers. But they are very strict with their rules, and there are large companies, so they put a lot of also pressure on the producer. But if you can follow those rules, I think you have a very good client. And one more thing which I can say is that because a lot of companies stop their production, this is both shoes and fashion, for this autumn, and I know that has affected a lot of people who work with production for companies. But now I also spoke to some of the stores, and there are not enough shoes out in the stores. Also, the shoes they want to sell because they stopped the production. They might can just now deliver like 40% or 50% of what was ordering. So I think also for the future, I will give a positive impact that I think that will change now. People are a little bit more, will be more and more secure in this situation, and will be able to place the production.
We have yet another question from Paula Simbrão. She asks, on textiles, Swedish people usually prefer to work with agents or directly with suppliers?
It's actually both. We are representing the agents, so of course we are pro of working with agents. But the thing is now is that because we can't travel and so on, and I think it's really good to have a local agent, which works perhaps with the whole Nordics because of the situation. And we don't know how long this situation will last. So that's a problem. And we don't know how long, for how long time people don't want to travel to different trade fairs. We know that Premier Vision was cancelled. We know that a lot of those kind of places are cancelled, and if like H&M has had that, they are not. So I mean, they're not allowed to visit any trade fairs for a very long time for the buyers. So it's really important to have a local partner at the moment.
Another question yet from Paulo Nicolau. Should we approach the home textiles market with the same philosophy as in the fashion market, same channels, same sustainability catalogs?
Yes, and I know also that, definitely. I think I spoke to Lexington, which I know produce a lot of things in Portugal, and they're really happy with that. And I think you could do much more on that market, actually. So the sports market and the home interior design market and the home textile market is a kind of large market, and you could, because Portugal provides social sustainability, which the Swedish company are looking for, and we will look for much more in the future. So I think you really have a great opportunity there, and to approach those companies, and that's a quite big business here in the Nordics, not only in Sweden, also in Norway, Denmark, and Finland. So I think that's a great approach from the Portuguese companies.
Helena, I will now kindly ask you to turn your computer to Vanessa, as I will be addressing her one or two questions. While you do that, I'm going to knock at Carlos Moura's door to ask him a question. Carlos, reminding you about the mic, do you feel there's a trend of nearshoring production, namely for the Swedish brands?
Yes, I think there is definitely a trend for nearshoring production, especially in Europe. I don't think it was only due to this COVID-19. I think this was a trend for the last couple of years. I can share a little bit my experience and my team's experience. When I arrived in Sweden a couple of years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, we did a kind of broad meetings with different suppliers, and in Sweden with different clients. And we try to understand what was the profile of the supplies they want, where do they produce, what kind of trend they are looking for. And I have to say, maybe 90% of the meetings, all of the companies were telling us, we used to produce in Asia or in Middle East, and we are coming back. We are doing, and we are having our production back in Europe because of a lot of things: quality, CSR, labor, sustainability, logistics, local consuming. So all of these, I think, is stronger now due to this COVID. You cannot travel, so all the goods coming from overseas or very far are more difficult to do business. So I think this trend is getting stronger and stronger. But if I'm wrong, I'll ask one of these guests to confirm or to add something more on this.
You are right as always, and hopefully that's music for our ears. Vanessa, let me come to you now. We heard you say some topics that companies should do in order to approach the Swedish market. Very important topics. I'll now like to ask you the don't do's. What shouldn't a company do if this company wants to approach the Swedish market?
Yeah, I actually did prepare a do not list for myself yesterday evening, but the one thing you should not do is say no to a coffee. So always have a fika. So
is there anyone that says no to a coffee?
I don't know. Do not use force. Do not force your customer to a decision. It's really, really important. You can never force a Swede. Then what they do is actually that they lock down themselves, and then you will never get them to be themselves again. So please do not use force. Ask questions. When you do not get answers, or when you feel that you don't get a response of do they like it, do they not, ask questions. And then suddenly you will get an answer about why they do not answer, because when they feel forced, they do not feel trust. And you should always think, I think you do, but I always think about a relationship with another company as a relationship at home. You know how it is. Sometimes it's very hard. So be gentle with the Swedes, and do not show disrespect. They don't like it. It's really talking about CSR. It's really something that everybody is very nice to each other in the company, and they don't talk with a loud voice and so on, because they perceive that as harsh. While in Italy or in Portugal or in France, we are a little bit more like this, and it can be perceived wrong here. So I think that there are those two things. And then the third, of course, is if you say that you're going to do something, or if you say that you're going to respect a deadline, or if you say that you are sustainable in some points, and then you are not, or you do not say as you said, then you are out. It's really a trust issue. You're out in the beginning. If it happens on the way and there are small things, of course you can repair. But I think today, if you want to enter the business with a new company, then it is very important that you really use transparency. Be yourself. I think you're very good at what you do.
Vanessa, is there a difference in business culture among the Nordic countries?
Oh, yes. You should be very careful with the Danish.
Because?
No. Okay. Yes, we're different. I'm going to say this quickly. Danish people are very much more like Southern Europe people. So they are much more direct, much more harsh, and they really are going to discuss very much more about pricing and so on. So they are much more hard to make business with. They're also very nice people, of course, but it's a huge difference. So for example, culture-wise, for a Swede and a Danish to cooperate, there can be a bit of a problem sometimes, because Swedes are like, now we shake hands, everything is fine, and then the Dane comes and wants to change and wants to have an even better price, while you have shaked hands. When it comes to the Finnish people, they're a little bit more like the northern Swedes, very quiet actually. But as for the Swedes, also for the Finnish people, it's very important with everything that has to do with the CSR. We are very alike in one way, but they are more can seem more quiet, and it's also because the Finnish people are a bit afraid of speaking English. So be sure that you can communicate rightly. And then when it comes to the Norwegian people, the language has a melody that is very nice. They always sound happy, always, because the melody goes up at the end when they talk. Be sure that they are happy, for real. So also there, just take time to ask questions. I think that the best thing you can do, whoever you work with, is really ask when you open up cooperation, how do you want to work with us? What are the most important things for you? Is it okay if we do like this? Normally we work like this. Is it okay for you? So secure, because now we're generalizing, but it also has to do with the person that you're working with. So it's culture, but it's also Vanessa or Helena or Gunilla. So make sure that you really listen. Big ears.
Vanessa, I would now like to ask you to turn your computer to Gunilla. I will be with Gunilla in a short while. Carlos, in the meantime, you have been in the Swedish market for quite some time. Which, in your view, are the top 3 items that you would prioritize when the company is approaching the Swedish market?
Wow, this is like the $1 million question. What can I say? From what I've been seeing and if I've been dealing with the companies and the society here, I'd say like everything that connects with green, with the planet, protection of the sustainability, top. Social responsibility, I think is very important. All the Swedish companies are very, very worried and very interested to know how is this social responsibility in the Portuguese or the others companies. And of course, quality. I think the Swedes are very, they know what they want. They pay what is available for, but they want quality. And this is, I don't say it's a message because almost of the companies know, all the Portuguese companies that produce on a very high quality for the Swedish market. So I used to say, if you produce for the Swedish market, definitely you are a very high quality company. So to sum up, green, sustainability, and quality should be your items when you think of doing business within Sweden companies.
Thank you. Gunilla, being a digital country, do you still believe in the physical stores in Sweden? Do you think the physical stores will still rule or not?
Yeah, I do. Actually, I do. We've seen it here and we've seen it with the e-commerce that there are special things that you can buy with e-commerce. But when it comes to touch and feel, you need to be in the store, and also the store provides you with a kind of a home in that way. I think that maybe I don't know, I mean, this is like watching the crystal ball as you were talking about, but the big companies might be as H&M and so that aren't very close to you, or what you say in English, that you need to have the connections with them. But I think that the small stores are going to be very important. And I actually have a friend here that works with high-end brands like Heider Ackerman and so on. And she says that you can't buy those clothes as being a store on e-commerce or on digital online, because you need to. If it's really expensive, you need to know what it is that you get. And if we all know Yohei Yamamoto and how he uses his clothes and how he makes his clothes, and you need to see them on, you need to touch and feel. And as a buyer, you won't buy a skirt from Yohei Yamamoto for 10,000 and not being able to feel it. And then again, also, you don't have it. doesn't have to be this expensive clothes, because how am I supposed to know if I'm not or not? I want to have the interaction with the store. I want them to come down, but I think it's going to be another way of buying, as you can come down and say, hi, I need a new pair of trousers. How can you help me? Because it's not easy. And I think that also the sustainability factor is also something. If you buy and then return, and with all the trains and all the cars are going to and fro, I think we're still gonna need it. I think we're social people. We want to meet. We want to see each other. We want to talk with each other. We don't want to sit like this all the time.
And you only can feel the fit directly in the store and not online. You can see if the clothes that you're buying are the right fit or the right colors, or you feel good with it.
Yeah, people will argue that there will be that you can have your own avatar, as we were talking about digital clothes. But as I said, I will come back all the time to that we are social people. We want to meet. We don't want to do it.
Thank you, Gunilla. I will turn now to Elena in a short while to address the last two questions of this webinar. We are 3 minutes away from wrapping up. The question that we have now here is from Sofia Santos Martins. She asked the question about shoe market. I am interested also on sustainable shoe market. Which entities should I contact? Thank you for the information given so far. A very kind note to wrap up this question.
Our organization is part of an organization which has all the large shoe stores and also brands in it, and we are running an initiative for sustainability in the shoe industry. So please contact me, and I will put a contact further.
And a last question from Paulo Nicolau about catalogs. Are catalogs like Elos or Jotex big players in the market?
Yes, they're big players in the market, but the catalogs are digital. So they're making everything digital today. And they are big players, actually. Elos is one of a very large digital platform for selling brands today, and home textile.
Sadly, this is time to go. This is time to say goodbye. Elena, Anna, Karin, Vanessa, Gunilla, thank you so much for being with us today. Above all, thank you for your comprehensive insights on the Swedish fashion market. I am sure they are of utmost importance for our audience. It was lovely having you here today. Sadly, this webinar is supposed to end here and now, but it will be recorded for future business and future contacts. We will deliver this recording and also your presentations to the audience that was with us today. And now in Portuguese, obrigado por terem estado hoje conosco. Esperamos vê-los de novo num dos próximos webinars que a AICEP está a organizar para ajudar as empresas a navegar nestes tempos de pandemia. Recomendo que se mantenha em contacto com o seu gestor de cliente, acompanhe os nossos canais web para estar ao corrente dos webinars da AICEP. E já agora lembro que na próxima segunda-feira temos um sobre e-commerce com a Google e na terça-feira um sobre materiais de construção no Reino Unido. Quero também agradecer ao meu colega Carlos Moura, partilhamos o entusiasmo e também o mesmo nome. Muito obrigado por ter estado aqui connosco hoje. Foi um prazer estar consigo, ter estado convosco. Espero vê-los em breve por aqui e até lá fiquem bem. Bom dia. Good morning and thank you.
Thank you. Tack så mycket. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Muito obrigado.
Obrigado.